I was 9 years old when I first came to the United States, and that was when my mother brought me and my sister here on a diplomatic visa because she found work at the United Nations. So I did come here legally. And since she found work in the United Nations, she had to travel to lots of different countries, and sometimes I wasn't able to be there with her. But I re-entered the United States when for the last time when I was 16 years old, I believe, on a student visa in order to finish my high school year. My mother, who was the sole provider, ended up not having enough money to pay for my schooling. But since I was on a student visa, I didn't have any ability to legally work in this country, and I didn't really have sort of a home country to go back to at that point. And at the time, my mother was in Zimbabwe, so she wasn't even in Senegal at the time. So that's when I was stuck, when I realized that, you know, obviously I was going to overstay my student visa, and I couldn't find legal work in this country. That's when things started to get, you know, pretty tough. And sadly, things got a lot worse a couple of years later, because then I ended up finding out that my mother died tragically. She was murdered actually in Zimbabwe at the time. And so on top of the immigration crisis that I had to deal with, there was also obviously the emotional struggle of having to you know, to deal with the fact that at that point, you know, I didn't have any parents anymore, and it was just it was a hard time. It was a really hard time.
When did you come to America? Long, long before the buffalo walked. When did your hands burn like coal? The thing that made this land your pride and your joy.
It's really about sharing the stories of people that we don't get to see in the media very often. And I just wanted to share very briefly the story of one person who led me to this act, which was a man who was an undocumented farm worker whom I met at an immigration reform conference a little over a year ago. He had participated in a hunger strike in order to advocate for comprehensive immigration reform. And his body was so exhausted by the end of the hunger strike that he had to be put in the hospital, and in order to be able to have some fluids put back in his body. And as soon as he was replenished, he went right back to the hunger strike in order to continue fighting for comprehensive immigration reform. And the story of my declaring my status sort of came out in the community and in the local newspaper, and obviously there have been a lot of replies on the internet about this, and I would say that a majority of the replies have been negative. And I was completely prepared for that because I've witnessed other friends who are undocumented activists do this, and so I know that the American public is not sympathetic to undocumented people, and that is precisely why I decided to do this. I love this country. And, you know, the slogan of this movement is undocumented and unafraid. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm afraid. Like, you know, I don't want to be deported. I don't want to have to leave this country. But if it happens, I will always feel like an American in exile somewhere else.
Imagine all the people sharing all the world. Now everybody, you You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine there's no countries. You know this verse, right? I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. All folks with empty hands. Replace it with the brotherhood verse, okay? Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday